Simplicity is complexity in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
The most complicated act in the world is to keep it simple. And the simplest act in the world is to complicate.
Welcome to the Let Me Save You 25 Years podcast. I'm your host, Shawn David Nelson, sometimes known as That Love Sack Guy. Today's Shawnism, talk less, which is kind of an irony, on a podcast where all I do is talk, but we'll break it down. Before I do, I just have to say thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this with a friend. This podcast pays me nothing. I try to bring you the most successful people in the world. I think my platform advertises a little, but I don't. And I hope that you can benefit from some of this content. Give it a like, give it a star rating, please. Give it a 5-star rating, if you please. Give me a comment. It all helps move the algorithm, makes it worth it. But look, today is something I struggle with, right? Talking less, listening more. So I'm 8 years old at a sleepover at my friend's house. And his dad's cooking dinner and we're hanging out in the kitchen. And I don't know, I'm asking questions, peppering him with all kinds of ideas and questions, whatever. And I can't remember. I'm guessing his dad was more of an introvert as a kid. I wouldn't have been perceptive to things like that. But at some point, he turns to me. As an adult, I'm 8. And he says, "You talk too much." And it actually really hurt my feelings, man. It actually kind of crushed me. And maybe he was kidding. I don't know. I was a kid, so maybe I didn't get the inflection. But I think he was right. I talk too much. And it's actually something that to this day plagues me as the CEO of a company. I got a bunch of people I work with all the time. Now we're mostly remote often, so I'm doing a lot over video. And I try so hard to keep my camera on mute because I have the tendency to talk over people, cut people off. Of course, even in my own family with my children, and my wife, I've learned on a personal level that I don't need to fix her problems. In fact, when I try to offer advice, it often ends up working against me. And I, of course, I've learned this, but I haven't internalized it fully. Just listen. That's okay too. And for someone who has the proclivity to talk a lot, my Shawnism today really hits home. Talk less. We'll break it down with the dude. When you get to meet this guy, you'll understand. He is a dude. It's one of these people that has lived a very unique life. We are uniquely blessed to chat with him. Get into how true being present is such a powerful tool. The 4 words that can improve almost any situation. How can I help? Spoken sincerely. Simplicity is complexity in disguise, right? Simplicity is the hardest thing to achieve. We get into how nature is an incredible teacher, a healer, especially when it comes to teaching us to stay silent, listen, and learn. The importance of championing the selfless acts of others. And nearly anything's possible, man, as long as you have this one tool, creativity. Talk less with our guest today, Charlie Annenberg, founder of explore.org. This is one of those for the ages. Enjoy. Today's guest is somebody who has dedicated his entire life to changing the way we see the world. Literally. Charles Annenberg is the vice president and director of the Annenberg Foundation and the founder of Explore.org, the world's largest live nature cam network that has brought millions of people face to face with everything from polar bears to panda cubs. Our Shawnism today, talk less. And this guy knows firsthand that listening deeply and asking the right questions can change conversations, relationships, and even the world. So let's dive in with a man who has turned curiosity, compassion, and quietness into a global movement. Please welcome Mr. Charles Annenberg.
Thank you, Shawn. I mean, that's a kind of a tough introduction to follow. I'm humbled, and it's always an honor to share. And to anyone listening to this, welcome to Explore.org. I like to think of it as the world's largest virtual zoo without bars. I'm your tram driver, and anytime you want to get on and experience beauty, purity, love in the natural world, we're here for you. No strings attached. It's free. Purity is our currency, and I'm humbled to be here. And how can I help?
Yeah, if you're as long as you're not driving right now, listening to this, just type in explore.org. If you haven't spent time there, it'll be your new favorite place to go to just escape. It's amazing. But hey, Charles, without giving it too much thought, when you heard this Shawnism, talk less, what's the first thing that came to mind?
I just laugh because we live in a culture that talks so much, and the art of communication and just taking a deep breath and listening is almost a lost skill. And I also say I laugh because my family is responsible for creating the Annenberg School of Communication at USC and Penn.
Wow.
For years, I have pitched to the deans of the schools, why aren't there classes on listening?
Mm.
We're so focused on talking, but the real art is in absorbing and listening speech, remembering names, being present. And they still haven't done it. So the irony that we are now talking about talk less is something that's always been very passionate to me because it's almost like a lost art form to just try and listen.
Wow. Well, we will violate it to some degree on this podcast today, but we'll try to expound. Look, like so many of my Shawnisms, I'm just trying to create cognitive dissonance for myself. You know, I am the biggest culprit when it comes to, I don't know, talking too much, interrupting people, talking over people. You know, all these things that extroverts like me, headstrong leaders like me tend to do sometimes. And but I believe this. I want to practice this, and I work hard to you know, develop some hacks and some tactics that may work for others who recognize this as an opportunity. So that's really interesting. I want to. So yeah, I noticed you're a USC guy. I'm a University of Utah guy. Maybe not a football aficionado. I don't know, but you know, we're sad to lose USC from our conference. But this School of Communication. So talk to me about that and your family's involvement. That's really interesting.
Well, I think it's, communication is a bridge. I mean, it's how we exist. I mean, it's a new thing. And so trying to improve ways of communication. I mean, I think it's taken such a radical turn in the last 5 to 10 years with social media and the speed of communication and how fast stories are. I mean, look at the podcast we're doing right now. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of the fact that it's actually given rise to the independent voice like yourself. I mean, you can have your own channel and kind of explore and deepen your own wisdom and topics that you're interested in. And so it's an ever changing thing, but at its basic, it's a bridge between two people. It's communication. And that's why, going back to this one topic, I've always been fascinated about listening because sometimes we forget the art of listening. And
Mm.
if you've ever had a really good conversation with someone, you probably, when you left, said, wow, that person listened to me. They're a good listener. And I found in a lot of things, it's about, in life, because before I was doing the live cams, I hosted a documentary TV show called Explore. And, people just want to be heard. and they want to be respected. And if you kind of follow those two principles, it's amazing the doors and the avenues of trust you can create around such a simple concept as just listening and don't be judgmental.
Yeah. It's one of those foundational quotes that probably passes through my mind every day of my life. You know, people don't care what you have to say. Let me think. People will forget uh, what you said, but remember how you made them feel. And I think that there may be no more useful uh, strategy to making people feel good, to making people feel something than listening to them. And in fact, just the other day, I had a friend come over. He lost his wife to cancer. And, you know, the fixer in me, the doer in me wants to offer all of these things, yeah, you know, advice, who knows. And I found myself actively trying to just talk less and let him, you know, share his feelings, let him share his story, give him a hug. And it's so hard for a person like me, you know, because I have a lot to say. I'm running a podcast, you know, it's ironic. But and I found myself, you know, looking in his eyes, trying to be present, trying to, you know, just hear him and actively trying to manage my own. And it's such a, you know, it's funny because it's actually such a safe tactic. It's so funny how quick we are to have something to say when, and I don't mean to play it safe. I'm not a play it safer. Uh, but you can always, almost always count on the idea of active listening and talking and saying less as a productive tactic to being useful and helpful to others, maybe more helpful than offering them any kind of advice.
Yeah, again, it's a process, and I didn't claim to be. I have my faults, trust me, but I do think there's an art form in just being present for people. Lots, and I have found that some of the most powerful things you can do in a situation you just said is they're just four words. How can I help? I'm here for you. And you know that's not a whole essay. And usually, I know if someone asks me when I'm in a situation, how can I help? The odds are I'm not going to ask for help. But
Mm-hmm.
hearing those words enriches me, makes me feel heard and respected, and that someone's there for me.
Yeah,
Dog is a toy. Hey, I hear you. He's trying to get my
we
attention.
love dogs, no problem.
I know it's just funny. You know how like he's coming in with like first was my shoe, and you know now he's like, here, listen to this. Um, so no, I'm just going back to I'm not perfect at all, but I just find sometimes you know just try to be present even if you're not there and listen because people you know just want to how can I help, it's a great phrase, you know.
I would add to that, push yourself to develop the mindset as you say those words, because lots of people say those words, that you are open to the ask completely. Like I really push myself, you know, because I've had people take me up on it, you know. I mean, sometimes kind of extreme. Like, hey, I want to actually, I need to, you know, use your truck, or I need you to pay for something, or I need you, or like, and yes, I push myself to say yes. And so I think it's not enough. I mean, it's great to say, how can I help? And be present, but also adopt that mindset that you're going to say yes. And I try to really put, and even though it often doesn't come, I sit in that moment of I'm ready for it and I will say yes and I will be of service. And I think there's something to sincerity. Like, for instance, there's a difference between just saying those words and actually being in a state of mind where you're ready to say yes to someone, even though the request won't come and somehow they feel it. And I don't know how to explain that. I've read plenty of books on psychology. I believe in, you know, the energy that we exude. I believe in a lot of things. But I won't assign a specific explanation to it, but I think people can smell sincerity, and sincerity does, I think, um, rest on our mindset, our actual intentions, unspoken.
This is interesting topics, but you said smell, and it's a reminder. I'm looking at the painting behind me of that's Otis, the most famous brown bear in the world, and as someone who observes the natural world every day, we take for granted the instincts and the essence of animals and their incredible intuition, and we forget we have them too.
Mm-hmm.
Smelling and feeling, but when there is something pure, you kind of sense it in a way that you can't put logic to it. And I think it's almost with all this technology and the way we've evolved, we discredit our own instinctual capabilities.
I agree. I mean, so much. In fact, I'm giving a speech next week about that. Delves into the human brain a little bit and how we've developed our amygdala, and our entire limbic system, so that we can react rapidly, even before we have conscious thought as to why or what we're doing, because that's what it takes. And that's why, again, another reason I talk about a lot, but I enjoy things like dirt biking, where you have to make 1,000 decisions, sometimes a minute. Little things, where you're placing your you're moving at 50 miles an hour over rough, you know what I mean? Like, and these can't be rationalized. These can't be logical. These have to be instinctual. And what an amazing machine we have, where we can smell and sense and feel things that we're not even aware of at a conscious level necessarily. And I don't think, while I can't fully explain it, it's certainly not in an articulate way, even though I have, I think, studied many bits and pieces of it. Any human that's lived long enough, I think, knows what I'm talking about. Like, we as creatures have developed instincts that can be very powerful, especially if we let them be, if we don't smash them down by our prefrontal cortex, overthinking things too much. Every time my kids stand on the edge of a cliff, we do a lot of cliff jumping. We're in southern Utah. We go to Lake Powell. We go to these places and we jump off of high things into water. I always tell them this, don't think too hard. They're always like, but Dad, do I go in with my hands up or my hands down? Or do you know what I mean? If hey, try to go in straight. Just don't think too hard. And it usually works out. And so, look, on this topic of developing the capacity for talking less and communicating effectively, any other, you've had a really interesting career. We'll get to your career and all that in a minute. Any other tactics right out of the gate for people that you've developed in terms of being an effective communicator, in general?
I just like at explore.org when we're having, let's say, creative meetings or discussions. I always, what is that? When I say something in a group, I always pretend it's like, what's that thing, ski shooting, when they throw the thing in the air and you shoot it down?
Yeah.
Is it called ski? I forget.
Skeet. Yeah.
Ski
Skeet.
shooting. I
Yeah.
always tell them everything I throw in the air is intended to be shot down. There is no right or wrong. It's about
Yeah.
stimulating conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that whatever we end up discussing today, I would imagine a month from now we're going to laugh at. And it's all a process, but just about keeping dialogue open and allowing people, again, to have the confidence to kind of express. But I always say that, like, shoot it down. I'm not going to take it personal. Do whatever you
Yeah.
want to it. But what I'm trying to do is it's kind of like, it's just get loose and open up a
Yeah.
creative brainstorm. And because it's all about process, this isn't like Talmudic law. I mean, these are just ideas. And I think sometimes you get stuck in the quest for perfection. And like when I was hearing you speak about mountain biking and the jumping, it reminded me of this quote I always had: simplicity is complexity in disguise. The most complicated act in the world is to keep it simple. And the
Mm-hmm.
simplest act in the world is to complicate. So when you were talking about like how to jump in or do things, it's like That's what I meant by Sesame Street for adults, trying to explore. I try to take complicated things and make them simple and make learning fun again. As a child, we have that innately. As adults, our minds start to ravel. So I try to bring you back without knowing it to a place. And so I think when you're talking about, it depends. I mean, every conversation is different and has different challenges, but I just know that one, I just try to honor and respect anyone in the room. I mean, if I'm going to spend time with someone, we might as do that. And two is to make it clear, like almost like boundaries that, and it's interesting because I work in a lot of situations where I think they live in a work environment where people are really afraid to speak up. And so they're not used to saying, don't worry. Yeah, I am the boss. Shoot it down. Shoot everything I say down. I don't want anything to make it. But that's okay because we've then made it like, but just tell me why.
Yeah.
And let's enjoy it. And I think it's like, so how do you then have some boundaries, but also remove this kind of like know it all? It's like you still can get to the same place. It's like the tortoise and the hare. That's all I'm getting at. By slowing down and listening, you'll probably get somewhere quicker, actually.
I love what you're saying because as a leader, I've found it to be very effective and necessary to not just invite people, but really urge, demand debate, demand participation, demand people to shoot your ideas down and to sometimes you got to be almost redundant and repetitive because people have been trained, from the time they were school children to listen and to take in information and to respect authority. And look, respect is great, but a leader needs to make people feel safe in speaking their mind. And that has to come from a sincere place. You have to actually convince yourself as a pretty capable problem solver, as a leader, that you and the group will benefit from the better outcome of a good debate versus just convincing and cajoling people to come around to your ideas. And it's difficult for someone like me because I do have a lot to say. And I am a good problem solver. And I think my ideas are pretty special sometimes. But I have found a number of things. One, just because someone would do it differently doesn't mean it won't work as well as mine. Like a totally different path can be just as effective. And I've seen that firsthand. And in fact, it's much more satisfying to those people as participants, as leaders and themselves when they get their way. And I've learned to let things go. Another example is I think that the best solutions, while I'll often offer a good solution as a place to start. Maybe by doing that, I get to skip 3 levels of dumb ideas. But now it's like you said, shoot it down, like twist it around, debate me, let's argue about it, and listening to others. And in the end, those processes lead to a better place than even where we started that I thought was pretty good to begin with. And I've had enough of those experiences. I mean, thousands of those experiences over my career that I've really started to convince myself that that is true. And therefore, when I ask for it, let's call it demand it from my team, that we, talk these things out, sometimes for a long time, sometimes over numerous sessions. You can't solve something in one meeting. They hopefully have learned and can feel from me that it's coming from a sincere place because I actually mean it. And it's difficult because I'll say things with such conviction because that's who I am. I say things with conviction that I have to really draw it out of them to get them to go toe to toe with me and make it safe for them.
Yeah, it's it's all a balance and a process, and every situation I think is unique. So you can't put a one size fits all. I'm just because I understand being strong minded and knowing. So I've just with each situation it's different. I still just go back to just trying to listen and treat people with respect will get you a really far way in not just your company but this world. And I think it's some issues that we face all over this world right now is just listening and realizing there's no right or wrong. People are coming from a perspective and trying to find a middle ground. And it's worked for me. It doesn't mean it'll work for anyone else, but it's a tactic I use.
So, shifting gears, you've filmed and observed animals all over the world. What has nature and wildlife taught you about the power of silence and of listening?
It's interesting you say that. I was just filming in Borneo with this famous conservationist named Barate Gildakis, and she works the longest field study of any researcher in the history of research on orangutans. And when I first saw her, I mean, it was hot, jungle, humid, heat, insects. She says, patience. That's the life of a researcher. And I would watch her, and she could just sit and listen and watch and observe. And, I'm coming off the plane, jet lagged, probably jacked on a Red Bull. The idea of sitting still and listening. And you know what's amazing though? And you probably experience this when you go mountain biking out in Zion. Just like you see the color in the rocks, the more time you spend in nature, the more the layers of you erode and you become more centered with nature. Whereas when you come in from a city, or if you have friends coming in from cities to visit you, and they're like much more high strung, and you found like anytime I'm in a natural setting, it kind of peels the layers away and it slowly slows you down, anyways, because nature has its own rhythm. It's not living on a clock, a
Yeah.
24-hour clock. It thinks in different terms. And so it naturally kind of forces you to listen. And, if you want to hear the most beautiful symphony, it's listen to the bird, the crickets replace the birds at night of the cicadas, and you wake up in the early morning. I mean, there's a symphony out there, nature symphony. And so it's really nice, especially on a lot of our live cams, the ones in Africa, for example. If anyone like right now, even if you just go and turn on the cam and you'll hear you're in the African Serengeti at night. You can actually
Live.
be there. Yeah, live. And it's so soothing. Or like when you hear the waterfall in the river right now, Brooks Falls in Alaska, or you hear the orcas speaking underwater off Vancouver, or you just hear birds tweeting. Um, nature is, for me, nature is healing. It's really simple. And I look at a lot of these sites. Here's a good way to look at it. I've always looked at them as natural cathedrals, and the pearls of the planet. So if you were to walk into a cathedral anywhere, what do? Actually, you sit and you kind of get silent and you connect to something. And I think that's what these cams do for a lot of people is without them knowing it. What I'm saying is no one tells you to go into a place like this and say, well, sometimes they go, shh. But in
Yeah.
general, you kind of know back to instinctually if you
Hmm.
look around. And I think when people watch our cams enough, it kind of allows you to slow down and listen without having to be told to do it because you'll
Yeah.
just hear this symphony around you. You'll look at the magic. I mean, last night the northern lights are blowing over the Arctic. Like I said, this lion, baby hippo. It's going to be, the bears. So to get into like the art of listening is nature's an incredible teacher to us, and you don't need a PhD to grab it. It puts you there, and you just sit there, and it teaches you to listen.
Yeah. We were just down on Lake Powell, which, is such a cool spot because it's basically the Grand Canyon filled with water. And it's remarkable in every respect. And when you're out there at night on the water, especially when it's a when there's no moon, because there's many phases of the moon, and I've been out on all of them. But with no moon, it is black as ink. And my friend who was with us, we were out there, at midnight on the water, and he's looking up and he's like, "What is that dust?" And he's from Florida. It's humid and hazy a little bit. In Orlando, lots of light pollution like any city. And I'm like, that's the galaxy, brother. That's a Milky Way. And when you see, unfettered stars, and I think it's one of the things I wonder about with society, like humans were, of course, descended from people that had no light, eventually fire. and got to experience the awe of these holes in the sky, whatever, however they perceived them, for centuries and in eons before, of course, we had cities and light pollution. And I really wonder, the people that don't get to experience real starscapes, what kind of effect that has on mankind and on humankind and on people's ability to feel small, people's ability to, um, you know, I wonder about this. And I look at some of the problems in our society, and so I love what you do at explore.org, because like you said, I mean, what a beautiful way to use the technology that's ruined the stars for so many, and pull them back to those places where they can connect. And it could sound hokey, or, it could sound like crunchy to people, but we are animals and we are living on a really special planet that can even allow, without our atmosphere, we'd all just melt. We'd all just radiate. You wouldn't have, I mean, there's so many things that had to be right to make this happen. And I just don't think we appreciate it enough.
Well, like I said, it's there for anyone, anytime, 24/7. And if you ever have that curiosity or want to see a beautiful, I, it's funny you bring up the stars because, being down here in Los Angeles, you don't see them. And I was looking at a photograph that one of our fans take photographs on our sites of the Northern Lights last night. And the Northern Lights were one thing. I couldn't believe the stars. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like you were just describing, like the entire Milky Way behind it. And so what I'm saying is for anyone, that's what's great about it is there's an opportunity to experience things from the comfort of your own home. There's no financial needs. And you can voyeur through this incredible, mysterious planet of ours and reconnect to the natural world.
So let's shift gears to philanthropy, which I know is a big piece of your life. How are you in a position to focus on that, and how do you reflect on that as part of your existence, your career, if you want to call it that? I think that it's something a lot of people uh, look up to, think about, would love to be in a position, to engage in. How do you reflect on that?
I've lived a blessed life. I'm just a steward of the public. So when I say I'm a tram driver, I really do this for hopefully the benefit back to communication school. I'm trying to connect people. What makes Explore unique is not just the camps, it's the community. There's tremendous amount of people who basically live on this site, explore in our social media properties and forge beautiful relationships. And it's a pure place. And so, ultimately I'm, a steward. And, the mission is simple. You're just trying to improve the human condition and do it in a way that's respectful of everyone and really trying always to, I like to say, champion the selfless acts of others, inspire lifelong learning, and create a portal into the soul of the universe. I mean, it's pretty, simple. And I hope that we lay breadcrumbs and create this kind of destination of trust where people come and they feel safe. We do a lot of live talks like I'm doing with you right now. And it's really a wonderful community. And, I hope anyone listening, if they have the free time, like I said, we're always here for you. We're a bridge. And it's an interesting responsibility. I'm happy, I like to think that some of the works we've done have helped others. I'm just a humble servant to bigger callings.
I think it's cool. I mean, if I understand correctly, you're, a generation or two back into media, family, the extended family, was able to amass some wealth, obviously created the school for communication at USC and was in a position to do all that. And here you are. I look at someone who's able to do what you're doing, and I think, yeah, look, you could just be out golfing or surfing with your buddies, and look, you probably get some skiing in and some surfing in along the way. I'm guessing, I know I do, but to spend your life, building something that I think is so good for the world, like one minute on explore.org, and it's like, wow, it's like it's just like propelling yourself out in nature. What motivates you to take that path versus, let's say, the golfing path?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment. And, since the topic is listening today, I'd like to just circle something. Sometimes we lose sight of what we do. And it's interesting when you receive a compliment in life, and I'm speaking to others out there just to think about this, how easily it could go in one ear and out the other. But if someone says something that feels harmful, how it sticks. So
Mm,
I just want to listen to your compliment and acknowledge it and first say thank you, because that's our currency at Explore, is hopefully that it has a positive impact on people. And that's really the philanthropy give back for me. That's my currency. When I get people writing saying how much this means to them, how it's enriched their life. We have a lot of sick patients who can't travel. And so first, I just kind of think it's funny because I've noticed in that listening game with ourselves, sometimes people will say the nicest things and they can go in one ear and out the other. But if
mm,
someone says one thing that's negative, that
yeah.
sticks. And so there's also an art of listening, of discarding the negative and sometimes really acknowledging the positive. So I just wanted to pause and say
No,
thank
it's a good
you.
one because, by the way, we have to do that because often positives are so rare. There's
Yeah.
so much negative. It's so easy to, I don't know, criticize. It's so easy to just leap into conversations about negativity, what's going on in the world, whatever. And it is an art. And by the way, a necessary survival skill to file these things away so that we can remind ourselves why we don't suck so bad when we beat ourselves up. Yeah, I'm serious. Like, to anyone listening, like, and it may sound, I don't know what it sounds like, but it is a skill I would encourage you to develop, and to hear and accept and rely on those, let's say, compliments when you need them, because we all need them. We're all fragile psychologically. The toughest, smartest. Look, I hang out with, I don't hang out, whatever. I know plenty of billionaires and centimillionaires, whatever, and they're all just fragile kids with egos and everything else and struggles trying to get by, even though they got all this money, let's say. And so we all have to develop that capacity. But keep going. So
No,
back to
so
your
I wanted
philanthropy.
to pause on that. For me, never stop learning has always been my mantra. I'm a curious mind and I love the interaction and having the purpose. So I've never been or associated myself as a country club type guy.
Hmm.
So I like as I get older, you know, I'm the worst golfer in the world, so I'll be the last one out. If you want to play with me, I mean, I don't know how I haven't killed someone out there, but that's never been my lifestyle. I would be bored. Um, I just really enjoy, that trying to improve the human condition. It's kind of what drives me. Um, Now, I don't deny living also in the mountains. If I can get the 2 hours of skiing in, that's my therapy.
Heck
And
yeah.
for mountain biking right now, there's something about water. Uh, enjoy enjoy anything water. So I do it, but it's all about, I think, living in balance and finding balance, which is not easy to do, and trying to stay on that grid. So I just, it's never been ingrained in me. I don't, although I come on paper from what would appear wealthy and obviously have many blessings, I've never really felt, I don't live a life of opulence or wealth. I'm just kind of a guy, who
Yeah.
is out there in the field. And I think that's why I've probably done well in a lot of my own interviews. Back to that being heard and respected, is I'm into humility, and I'm really lucky that simple things give me great pleasure, and that pleasure is usually connected somewhat to the natural world. And I don't need things like that doesn't drive me, is what I'm getting at.
It's a great example for anyone listening or watching, because be careful what you wish for. I think deep down, plenty of humans, maybe most, wish for wealth, wish for some kind of ease, some kind of break in the pressure of just trying to survive. There's so many of us. I think even those that achieve some level of success continue to feel the pressure of trying to basically survive the life that we've accidentally sometimes built around us that we have to afford and keep up or whatever. But all of that aside, whatever level you're at financially or whatever you hope for, I think that if you can find a way to have spent your life building something that matters, that means something, whether it's your job or whether you do it on the weekends, if you can find a way to not be disconnected from the natural world, if you can find a way to create meaning for other people as you do on explore.org, as I think we do at Lovesac, we get to employ a couple thousand people. We get to provide a really cool environment for them. We get to rally around our Design for Life products. To me, this is meaningful. Of course, I get to raise a family as well, and that's of course meaningful. These are the things that matter. And in the end, man, these like, it's so cool to speak with you because there are buildings at USC named after your family. But to be frank, before we hung out today, I didn't know your family. You know what I'm saying? Like, and my point is, it doesn't matter. Like, it matters that you're a good steward of it, and you are, I think, and it's cool that I just really respect that because, it kind of like people, even if you get a building named after you, like it's really about how you're living your life with an ing and how you lived your life. And I just think too many people, it's too easy to get caught up in the pursuit of whatever it is, financial wealth, opulence, all these things, And so I love that about what you've done. Look, people are often rewarded for speaking up in your world, philanthropy, business, pitching, persuading. How do you reconcile that with the idea that real power comes from listening? Because you are navigating, you are building, you have an organization, and it continues to grow.
I just believe in simplicity. And I've always said my evil plan is to get people to fall in love with the world. And how do you do that? By observing. It's just that simple because you develop an emotional connection. And again, I myself don't, because I guess maybe I hosted this documentary TV show and the things I've done, back to listening, everyone is welcome and explore. There's no right or wrong. And that's what nature does. It's a great equalizer. And so what's amazing about our community is all walks of life. Doesn't matter rich or poor, ethnic, where you live in the world, politics. Somehow, when they're on Explore, everything drops and they fall in love. And so I've tried to create, it's like breaking bread, a neutral place. And that's why often we try to stay out of things like that because we're really a refuge in a world of so much chaos. That's why I call it a bridge. If you're having a tough day, there's always a home called Explore, and you're always welcome. And hopefully, if it's just 30 seconds, or you stay on for 20 minutes, hopefully it will help you heal because nature is healing and come down and you'll meet unique people. So I've just kind of learned through time, just like the rocks in Zion. I used to have, I think, a lot more ambitions in certain areas of just to keep it simple. And for now, this is your niche, and it seems to do well. It just seems to work. And so I don't, that I think that's the trick is back to just honing those rocks you're talking about. And I realized that, this is what's working for today. That doesn't mean tomorrow will change, but for today, this is where I am on the path.
That's great. Is there any example you can think of where somehow listening, really listening had some kind of ripple effect that was far bigger than that moment itself or far bigger than, you would have maybe you didn't connect those dots until years after?
Well, I've lived a Forrest Gump life, okay, for sure. And when I was, especially when I was doing my documentaries, which were all over the world, but also in every state in America, I've really done a lot of things. And every now and then, some magic really appears, you know. Like one of my many favorite projects. One was in the coal mines of West Virginia,
Hmm.
Massey coal mine after it blew up. And on one side, you have these the most amazing salt of the earth coal miners who are just trying to put food on the table. And on the other hand, you have all these environmentalists. And then in the middle, there was this school that was in the middle called Marsh Fork Elementary. I show up, it was the funniest story. The first thing I always do when I used to do my documentaries is I go to a Walmart and get into characters. I get my West Virginia hat, you know, my Wranglers. And the news rushes me because they think I'm a local about how I feel because the President of the United States is coming.
No way.
Yeah, to talk. So like I'm on the evening news, full Forrest Gump.
No way.
But my point is, like after 2 weeks, I had really, by listening and not taking sides, I had bridged this bridge between these environmentalists, the coal miners, the school, to the point that it ended up getting up to, at the time, Senator Manchin, where they decided to build a new school and move it. That was in 2.5 weeks. So
Hmm.
I is an art of listening. And I've like
Wow.
a lot of really unique stories like that where just like things happen. There was a vet we did up in Sun Valley where I shot this film Fish Out of Water, and it's the power of nature's healing, and a vet who wanted to commit suicide, and talking to him. And guess who saved his life? My dog, my golden retriever. They called me the dude. One day we're going to go out fishing. I knock on this door. This like young man, I mean, teenager probably, is sitting under his bed shaking. Get out of here, dude. He called me the dude. It's so cute. I'm like, dude wants to leave. I don't want to be here, but we got to go fishing. I was told to get you. Well, I'm not going. I said, I don't want to go either. Hey, can you do me a favor? What's that? It's too hot out for Lucky, my dog. Would you mind just watching him then? Because he likes a cold floor. I'm just going to take off. Lucky walks under the bed like he would, puts his paw on his hand. I just left.
Hmm.
10 minutes later, this guy comes out, gets on the bus with Lucky. We never said a word. And like I'm just saying, like times like that, like there's just been a lot of magic and like nature in people. We do a lot of live talks, and we get a lot of letters. I mean, we've had a lot of like letters from people with depression, and they really just say that just kept them going. And it's really humbling, those moments, back to like incorporating, because anyone who's running something in their life, we're going so fast, it's easy to lose track, lose sight. And so like sometimes it's so wonderful, like you said, when you gave me a compliment about Explore, just to stop and acknowledge that. And even that question, I mean, that was so long ago. Doesn't happen. It rarely happens, but there's sometimes a magic happens, and it's just such an enriching feeling. And I'm just blessed and grateful to have had those experiences. And so, we're Forrest Gump. It's not like we've moved on.
Yeah.
It's like I've kind of moved on, but through the work we've done, around this country and in other places, it's kind of unique, and I'm always humbled by it.
And for people, who might have a spark of a notion of a way like you have done to create something that might have meaning in the world, but they're not sure, it's kind of a dumb idea or kind of like a out there idea. Give us, how did it start? What gave you the spark to do what you're doing with Explore? What were the humble beginnings so that people can understand how to connect those dots? Because now you're getting letters from around the world, you're changing lives, and it probably began with one camera or something. Tell us about that.
Well, again, I mean, it started way before the cameras because there was no such thing as live technology. So it started with just like archiving and documenting selfless leaders. I mean, it's almost like pre-podcast. They're trying to give them a voice because they're truly the heroes of our society. I mean, people who've given up the almighty dollar to try to improve the human condition, but then are kind of treated like second-class citizens because
Mm.
they didn't go to law school or something. So I was really trying to champion their voices. And it's really interesting. I was doing it at a time where before like like politics had coined the term fake media, I'd always was kind of like, why do we only hear one side to a story? Back to listening. There has to be good people doing good work no matter where you're going, but we never hear about that. So you mixed in that with this curious mind. And I really was just like, God, there needs to be a destination of trust, a place where someone who wants to get involved can kind of feel safe and know that it's trusted. And so I was just a blend of that never stop learning, curiosity, and wanting to champion selfless acts of others. And that's really how the journey began. And I remember, I mean, my God, there wasn't even Instagram or Facebook or YouTube.
Mhm.
Like the world has changed now. I mean, it's just crazy, like how you can reach. We're on a podcast, how you could reach people. I remember, like when we were looking at our like website traffic, and I was trying to challenge everyone. How do we get to 1,000
Yeah.
people? How do we get to like 300?
Yeah,
And but ironically, what I want to tell people is, looking back, that was the most fun part of the journey. Was
sure.
the innocence, the struggle, the Rubik's cube, the
Mhm.
naivety, the just going out and trying to do it like in a straight.
What year was that you're describing roughly, just as an example for people?
Well, at least hold on. Let me give you. Hold on. Like 20 years. The last 20 years.
Yeah, so that's a message, The one of the problems with our world is we live in a place where, of course, the headlines are going to be about like literally the overnight success. Oh my gosh, in 2 years, two employees are worth $1 billion. Those things are real, maybe, but they're super rare. And for every one of those, there's 10,000 or 100,000 examples more like yours, more like mine. I'm 27 years in and I'm still in the battle, and we've come a long way, but like you have to have the stomach for that, because the fantastic ones, I mean, it could happen, but it's more rare than lightning striking you. And probably everyone listening has never been struck by lightning. So it's like, do you have the stomach to muscle through the years of dozens and hundreds of guests versus, let's say, the millions that you get today? And I'm even living that with this podcast. I mean, it's certainly doing all right, but like nothing like where it really needs to be to punch through. So what's my option? Make another one and
It's
another one and
it's
another one.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted strategy, and that's why you have to be hopefully driven with some form of passion and curiosity, because without it, it's going to dry up quickly, the lake bed. But yeah, so just driven by, curiosity. And it was funny how, and then like my life changed, and there's many different divisions to explore, which we don't need to get into here. But then, I kind of came up with the live cams, and that's been about, God, I've just lost track of time, but at least the last 11 or 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it evolved, just like me. Lovesack's a couch company now. And by the way, soon other stuff as well. Still named after the giant beanbag that people probably think of, some people, when they hear our name. And that's where you just got to go where the river takes you, man, and be open to that and not be so rigid on my, original. It's like we're told to write a business plan. We're told to have a vision. And it's tricky because you have to pursue that vision and also be flexible with it and know when to be rigid and disciplined and know when to be flexible. And if I had the formula to do that, but this is why I have to remind myself and everyone listening, that's why they pay you the big bucks. And I mean that metaphorically speaking. What I mean is, like, these things are not black and white. There is no answer. There's no right answer. There's only the answer you feel out, and then you go live. And sometimes it's about discipline, and sometimes it's about openness. And if you have, some, I guess, natural ability to listen to your instincts and read the patterns and whatever it is, you might just have some success as you've had. Any final thoughts? Like, the spirit of the podcast, let me save you 25 years. For someone back in your shoes when you were beginning and you made the choice, not to be a golfer, but to do something in this world, how might you have shaved a chunk off your own 25-year journey, if there's such a thing?
It's a a really good question, and I think you just said something that's interesting, and I think the reason why you try, like I said this earlier, like when you started your company, now you kind of laugh 25 years ago because you were so rigid on this, but having the ability, I think that's why you create plans. They give you the ability to be flexible. You have to know how to change and don't be too rigid and to be open to this process. And where the process has changed today versus like when I started was you have so much more access to do things like a podcast, social media, ways to build your brand. Whereas when we started, we didn't, but it really still is the same fundamentals of, trying to enjoy all the cliches you heard of trying to enjoy the process of it and realizing there's going to be, pitfalls and it's like knowing how to fail fast, fix it. That was so important, like don't get stuck. Like just in today's world, you can test things, but be adaptable. And don't hold yourself back. Let me give you an example quickly as we close, since you want that of change. So I was just in Borneo, and I was thinking about live cams, but I hosted a documentary TV show, and I meet this woman. She's so inspiring. She's 80 years old, still charging. So with the iPhone in my pocket, in 3 days, I shot a documentary on her. It's gone into 13 festivals now. The budget is less than $5,000. That didn't exist when I went out there. But what I'm trying to say is, I think that's really cool. But to me, why it's really cool is because it shows that anything is possible if you have the creativity today.
Yeah.
And all these filmmakers, in a lot of film festivals, the film won't get in because it's on an iPhone and it's because art is cinema and all this, where we're verite.
Mm.
My point is that if you have that inspiration, there are means to do things. You have the YouTube, you have a voice. To just go out and throw yourself into something, look in your backyard. There's Zion, there's this, there's an interesting character, and it will just start to enrich you. And I hate to say those baby steps, but what's crazy is someone who used to do stuff on IMAX and all this, it was an iPhone in my pocket.
Mm.
And here I am, the vice president of the Annenberg Foundation, right? I could go out there with an entire film crew, marching around on IMAXs and da-da-da. And here I am, the guy. And it's hilarious when I get back to another key word is rejection, and it hurts. It's part of the process. I get all
Yeah.
these, hey, well, you won't accept your film in this film festival. They think I'm some young kid filmmaker. They don't know they're talking to like the vice president of the Annenberg Foundation. And I'm like, I probably shot the cheapest film in the whole 500 submissions. I mean, we're talking about my iPhone.
Yeah.
And so really my point is, and I tell this a lot to kids, it's like, yeah, we want to do things a certain way, but sometimes your passion is so strong that just go out and go for it.
Yeah.
Get your feet wet and do the baby steps because it builds that confidence and that. And I always tell this to like my daughter, like be dyslexic. If someone
Mm.
says no, it means it's on. Okay. Don't listen. Don't listen to anyone who shuts the door on you. Just walk around it because 9 out of 10 people are going to say no and they don't get it. Why? They're not even listening to you. They're not tuned into you. They are different human beings than you. And I always emphasize that to people. There's one time to say dyslexia is a great asset. If they say no, read it as it's on,
It's
take the
on.
challenge, and trailblaze forward.
I'm stealing that. It's on.
Yeah.
I love it.
So
Back to the original Shawnism, number one in the book, man. Just do something. We live in a day and age where it's easier than ever and more crowded than ever. And that's what stops people. Well, there's already podcast. I'm too late to the podcast. I'm too late to the, documentary game. I'm too late to the social media game. It's on.
it's on, exactly. That would be my number one is just turn nose into on and just keep moving forward.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, look, please, everyone, be sure to keep an eye on Charles' philanthropic adventures on Twitter and Instagram at Annenberg, ANNENBERG _FDN Foundation, Annenberg Foundation. The realest and coolest nature videos you can ever see at explore.org. It'll change your life. And you can follow Charles' amazing charity, Dog Bless You, on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much to the environmentally conscious EP, the documentarian who dreamed up Dog Bless You, the chief executive of explore.org himself, Mr. Charles Annenberg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and never stop learning. And remember, Explore is a home away from home to anyone who wants to visit us.
And remember this, talk less, listen more, because sometimes the answers you're chasing are hiding in someone else's words. It just might save you a chunk off your own 25-year journey.
Once a year to take my friends away should not be the budget for your bike across America.
TikTok has become an aggregator for some of the dumbest human actions.
When I won that million, I was $2 million in debt, barely hanging on.